Hi, everybody. This is Laura Jakubowski at the Nonprofit Centers Network. We are about to start our webinar on an introduction to the evaluation project. We're just going to give it a few more seconds as folks are joining the call. I'm really excited and I'm really pleased that so many of you are joining us. We did this a little bit differently from our usual webinars because this is sort of a special opportunity as opposed to sort of an educational piece. We've invited you all to learn a little bit more about a new program that we're going to be offering or hope to be offering at NCN called the Evaluation Project. Looks like most folks are jumping on here, so I'm going to get started. Again, my name is Laura Jakubowski, and I'm the Executive Director at the Nonprofit Centers Network. And we're going to turn it over to Elena Harmon from Vantage, and she's going to talk about the evaluation project and what our plans are for this. But I wanted to just give a little context for this. You've all been invited because you are existing centers. A lot of you have participated in the collaboration project. And basically, and a lot of you also participated in our webinar that Elena participated in as well in March on evaluation strategies. And really, our thinking around this has been that we get a lot of questions about how nonprofit centers can demonstrate their impact. And in the past, we've developed some tools and research, but they haven't been adopted as readily as we had thought. And in thinking about sort of what's best for nonprofit shared spaces, both individually and as a network, we've been thinking really hard about how to help you have the tools to demonstrate outcomes and to demonstrate that we know that shared space makes a difference and to be able to tell that story in a more definitive way. So we were hoping to find a way to help you do evaluation. We know evaluation is hard, and it's especially hard in shared space because there's so many complex relationships and activities going on. It's expensive as well, and we know that we hear from folks that they don't know where to start. They might not have a lot of resources in their locations, and even if they do have resources, again, shared space presents sort of this unique situation that a lot of folks, that doesn't necessarily lend itself well to some of the usual strategies. I think with the collaboration project, we kind of wanted to kind of put the building blocks in place for this, and I think we were successful in defining collaboration specifically in shared space, how folks interact, what behaviors we can measure that change because they're in shared space. I think by talking about laying out collaboration plans, that really lays the groundwork for more evaluation because you have something that you can measure, something that you can describe, something that you can track. And so I think that really has laid the foundation for this work. So I'm really excited that Elena is going to talk to you about our plans today. We hope we'll have enough interest to sustain this project. What we're doing on our end is fundraising to try to make sure that we have enough funds to pay for Elena's time to do this. We're essentially kind of group sourcing Elena's time. We're going to try to raise at least 75% of the funds for this, and then folks on the centers would be chipping in $500 per center to help subsidize that cost. But we think it's really important for the network to have this kind of information. We think you're going to get a huge value because if you participate in this, you will basically, you'll get at least 10 times what your cost will be because a lot of the work that Elena does, it's sort of $5,000 a crack, and I'm sure that's the case in a lot of your markets just to start any of this evaluation work. And you'll be able to come out of this with an evaluation that's tailored to your needs. You'll also, I think the peer learning experience, I think was really valuable in the collaboration project, and I think for this even more so. So having a guided facilitation around evaluation is going to be really key. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elena and let her introduce herself and walk you through her slides. so that she can kind of tell you what the plans are, and then we'd like to save a bunch of time at the end for questions as well. So Elena, I've given you control of the screen. Hopefully you can advance your slides, and if not, I can always move them forward.
Great, thank you so much. Doesn't look like I can move this slide forward, so if you just want to do it for me, and I'll give you a heads up when it's time for the next one.
Okay, there you go.
Perfect, thank you. So hello everybody, thank you so much for joining us today to learn a little bit more about the evaluation project we have designed for you. For those of you who weren't on the last webinar that I did with NCN, I'm Elena Harmon. I run an evaluation consulting firm out of Denver, Colorado called Vantage Evaluation. And our focus is really on getting nonprofits and other socially driven organizations the best evaluation, the most rigorous evaluation they can for the resources that they have available to them. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how to balance rigor and accessibility so that we're making the best use out of the evaluation resources that any organization has. And this project is an extension of that work. So essentially, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be guiding you through an evaluation project and facilitating the development of an evaluation thought process. And the reason why we've structured it this way is for two main goals. The first thing is that we really want you to leave the project with some concrete evaluation findings so that you can walk away with stories and data and something that you can use to tell your story to your members and to your funders and to other key stakeholders. And the second element of this is instead of doing an evaluation once and then walking away and 2 years from now having some different questions you want to answer and not knowing where to start, we're really going to try and develop the skills in each of you so that you can take on your own evaluations afterwards and transfer these skills from year to year. So the content has been designed around those two goals. And I like to think of evaluation as having three main parts to it. The first is that you have to focus an evaluation. Evaluation can mean really different things to different people depending on the questions that you're trying to answer. And it can get really big and intimidating and messy very easily. So the first thing we're going to be focusing on during this project is how do you find a manageable focus for an evaluation, and how do you frame that evaluation in the most effective way possible. So that's what the first part of our project will be focused on. And then from there we move into designing an evaluation. So once you've established your key evaluation questions and you know really clearly the types of information that you're trying to get out of your evaluation, we'll spend some time figuring out how you design an evaluation to answer those questions. And as you know, in evaluation, there are a zillion different methods of varying degrees of complexity, but most methods that are thrown around are built on the building blocks of surveys and qualitative data analysis. So we'll spend a good chunk of the project teaching you how to design and implement high-quality surveys and how to design qualitative methods like focus groups and interviews. And then in the remainder of the project, you'll have the opportunity to conduct an evaluation with my support and the support of your peers. So you'll take one of the questions that you identify in the focusing and evaluation section and match it with a survey, a qualitative tool, or both, and you'll have a chance to execute it while we're doing the project so that when you walk away, you'll have some real data and some concrete, actionable evaluation findings to apply in your center. Next slide. So the project is built on 5 different learning elements to achieve the goals that we've talked about so far. So first, we're going to have 4 webcast lecture sections to go over the basics of focusing an evaluation, designing an evaluation, and conducting an evaluation. And between each of those sessions, you'll have a homework assignment to practice what you learned during the webcast. These homework assignments will be varying degrees of time commitment, and like most things in life, you'll get out of it what you put in. So at the highest level of engagement, you'll have an opportunity to go back to your center and to some of your key stakeholders and staff and develop key evaluation questions with them using some of the facilitation tools that I teach you in the webcast section, just to give you an example. On the low end of a commitment, you could take what we learned in the webcast section and sit down for an hour on your own and come up with some key evaluation questions. That would get you through it, but it's a question of whether you're getting the information out of the evaluation that is really meeting your key stakeholders' needs. After those homework assignments, each time I'll review each of your assignments and one of your peers will review them. So yes, that means that you will be reviewing for your peers as well. And then we'll meet as a small group to discuss common successes and challenges and learn from one another. And I think this piece is really important in any evaluation project because it's helpful to know that everybody else is going through the same struggles as you're working to develop these skills as you are. And because you're all working in similar environments with shared spaces, my hope is that you'd be able to learn from each other and share some ideas around what works well. Each of these homework assignments will build up into a final project, during which you'll have the opportunity to conduct a small evaluation project for your center. And then throughout the program, you'll have access to one-on-one time with me to address areas that you just need a little bit more support on. Next slide. So some of you might be wondering why you should trust me to teach you evaluation, and I hope that you'll reach out to me if you have any specific questions. But essentially, evaluation is my heart and soul. I love evaluation, and more than that, I love teaching people evaluation. I think it can be such a powerful tool for nonprofits when done in a really thoughtful way. And it's my goal to bring that thought process and the evaluation mindset to as many nonprofits as I can. I've been in the evaluation for my entire career. I started working at a health foundation when I was first out of college to help me learn evaluation skills and simultaneously help them design a collective impact approach to evaluation. And I found my way into consulting as a way to help as many nonprofits as possible and to help build evaluation capacity in my community. Along the way, I got my PhD in evaluation. My goal is to know as much as I can about evaluation and all the jargon and theories behind it so that you never need to. So this will not be a jargon-based course. It's very actionable and focused on what you need to know to do evaluation well, not the theory and the academic side of evaluation. I work hard to help my clients design the best evaluation they can and to make data sing, because we don't just want to collect data for data's sake. The power is in the information that data provides us with. So we'll spend a decent amount of time during the course talking about how you synthesize information in a meaningful way. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you have and open it up for any questions.
Great. Thanks, Elena. We do have questions that are coming in, and well, actually, I was going to add something, but I think if we answer the questions, we'll get to these same points. So the first question, and for those of you, I'm assuming that most of you have been on our webinars before. If you haven't, you can type in your questions in the chat box to your right, it's probably on the right side of your screen, and then we'll just read them out. So feel free to jump in with all your questions. So the first one is, what's the time frame for the project? Do you want, and maybe actually, Elena, should I speak to that, or should we both speak to that, or how do we want to handle that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and jump in on that one?
Okay, so, and this came from Pam. Great question, Pam. We had been hoping to start this in November. I think we're looking now at sort of January, partly because we're doing fundraising right now for this, and to be honest with you, we don't have the funding in place just yet, but we have applications in and we're waiting to hear, and we have more applications going in. So if anybody has suggestions on folks that you think would like to support this work, please let me know. Elena, I think, had said that this could be a 10 to 12 month project. It could also be adjusted to kind of meet the needs of the group. So some of it would probably depend on the folks that opt in to participate in it. And Elena, maybe you want to talk about just the timing. And I know you were saying, you can either do a lot of work in a short period of time or the same amount of work just spread out over more time, but maybe I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had originally designed this project around a 10-month time frame for the organizations, and there's a little bit of homework before the first session, and then about a session every 2 months to get us through that 10 months. It can be condensed, certainly. If a 6-month timeline is all the energy and attention you have for evaluation, we can condense it that way, but the work amount is the same. So it would just be more intensive periods with shorter periods of time to complete any homework assignment. That said, depending with whatever time frame we decide on, we will have the curriculum and the schedule set up in advance, so you'll be able to block time in your schedule to complete the homework assignments well in advance.
Great. Yeah, and I think again, for those of you who are who participated in the collaboration project, it's a similar format, right? Like we had webinars, and then in between the webinars, folks did homework. So I think the way Elena designed this is actually very, very similar to what a lot of you are familiar with. And the collaboration project was a 9 or 10-month project, so very similar to that. Okay, so we're going to keep going on. We got a comment back from Pam. Longer term works much better for me. Condensed was hard last time. Yeah. So Pam was in the collaboration project. So that's a good point. Pat Smith from Serve Denton asked whether the presentation slides will be available after the webinar. Yes, we will certainly send these out to folks. And here's a question. There's quite a bit of diversity among nonprofit centers. We have service spaces, theme centers. How will you accommodate this diversity?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. And this process is designed to have every center designing an evaluation and key evaluation questions and the methods that meet their needs. So we'll talk through what evaluation looks like in different contexts. And essentially that process of focusing an evaluation, the thought process that you go through is the same for every single evaluation. So I work for some very, very large organizations and some itty-bitty nonprofits. And I work for organizations that have really concrete, course style programs, and I work for complex multi-system interventions. And the thought process around evaluation is the same in every single project. So your end project, the evaluation that you design, will look very differently, but the thought process that you go through, in my opinion, is something that's consistent, and that's what we're trying to teach during this process. So it absolutely can accommodate centers that have very diverse needs and interests.
And Elena, I guess I was thinking when I saw your slide as well that if we were going to be breaking folks into small groups, it would make sense potentially at certain points to group the theme centers together in a small group, and maybe the folks who are more service or human service oriented into a small group. So I think that mechanism within your within kind of the curriculum would lend itself to that as well. Do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think my idea behind the small group was that it would be the same small group throughout the process, so that you would be familiar with others' projects. But if we did see some clusters of organizations that were more similar, that's a great way to design the small groups from the beginning, so we can try and accommodate that as well.
Okay. All right. So we have a question. We are a center in Canada that helps other nonprofits do evaluation and also teaches about evaluation. Could our project be a project we are working on with another organization, or does it have to be an internal project for our own organization?
Yeah, so this is very similar to the previous question. Is you're going to have the opportunity to design an evaluation around whatever topic it is that you're most interested in. So if it's not internal to your organization, I don't see that as a problem. It's still the same process, and you still learn the same skill set and then be able to apply it to your own center at another state. I'm not sure, Laura, if you have any other comments or thoughts about that one.
Yeah, well, I think it does. Elena and I were talking about this webinar yesterday, and one of the things I would love to see. I mean, the first goal I think is to solve the problem of getting all of our nonprofit centers, the kind of evaluation support that they need to be able to tell their story, to be able to say to funders, here's why it's important that you support us, here's why we need operating funds, or here's why we make a difference, here's why it's better that everyone's located together than separately. But second of all, I think if we built these skills, if Pam Mock and Pat Smith and other folks who are on the call have these skills, there's potential for spreading them within your centers with all the nonprofits that are located in your center. So, once you have this capacity, my guess is that there are a lot of other groups within your centers that could use this, and so you can become a resource to them as well, and helping them with their evaluation needs. So that's what I would add. Okay, I know there are more questions out there, so keep them coming. Elena, I wonder if you could speak to maybe some of the deliverables, like what would that actual final project look like in terms of what nonprofits would walk away with? Who could be the audience for that? Is there anything you could describe? I mean, I know they'll all do their own thing, but can you speak at all to what kind of deliverables they'll have at the end of the process?
Yeah, sure. So I think that walking through an example might be helpful for this. So essentially what's going to happen is that during the focusing and evaluation section, all of the centers participating in the project will identify a couple of key evaluation questions that they want answered. And these are questions designed to really focus in on, when you say evaluation, what is it that you're trying to learn? So for an example, you might say something, I think collaboration comes up a lot in this space. So you might say, to what extent do our nonprofit members collaborate with other members on their work? So that might be your key evaluation question that you're trying to answer. And then during the designing and evaluation section, we would spend some time thinking about, okay, when you have a question like that, what types of methods are most appropriate to answer that question? And so we might go through a little bit more specificity in terms of saying, okay, what do you mean by collaboration? What does it look like when collaboration is happening? And then identify, okay, well, we know that there are these existing tools out there, or we don't really have a sense for what collaboration looks like in this center at this time, so we're going to focus more on some qualitative methods. And so then the first deliverable that you have is the key evaluation questions matched to the methods that might be used to answer them. And that's one thing where it will help you beyond this project, because for this project, we'll then take a subset of those questions, or a single question, and a subset of those methods and proceed with them. But you'll have the list of all the questions you're interested in to present to your key stakeholders. So for example, when funders ask you how you're going to measure the impacts of your work, you suddenly have the key questions you're going to focus on and the methods that you think would be best to measure those things. So then say that we were going to measure collaboration through some qualitative methods. You would then go through the process with me of designing, say, a focus group protocol. So then the second deliverable is that you have those instruments to answer those specific questions, whether they're focus group protocols, interview protocols, or surveys. And those can be repurposed again for future evaluations. And then you'll go through the process of actually conducting those evaluation tools. So you'll go out into your community and do some focus groups with members of your community to understand how they're collaborating with other members. And the end result, the end deliverable, will be a report that synthesizes the findings from that. So we'll talk through how you take focus group data or survey data and analyze it both in isolation and synthesizing it with information that you have from other sources. So how do the focus group responses you got, do they corroborate the survey findings? Are they different? Why are they different? What are you learning about your center and the collaboration that's going on there through this process? So the end result will be you'll actually have an evaluation report on one or more of your key evaluation questions that you can present back to your stakeholders and say, hey, look, this is what we're learning about our center. This is what we understand better now that we've gone through this evaluation. And it will help you figure out what's working well and what might need to be tweaked. So that's just one example. The collaboration may not be a topic that you focus on, but perhaps it is. But everyone will walk away with a better sense of how to frame their evaluation, some concrete tools that they can use in this and future evaluations, and an evaluation report that will help them understand the answers to one or more of the key evaluation questions they identified.
Great. Yeah, and I mean, I imagine, we hear from a lot of centers sometimes, especially the human service related ones, wanting to kind of measure that impact in their community. And it might be that you want to be able to track or be able to show, if you have clients that come to your facility and they go to multiple different tenants or, different agencies that are in your center, how can you kind of quantify that impact in your community, whether it's you're saving that client time or they're accessing services they hadn't accessed otherwise, or maybe their children are getting services that might not otherwise have had that opportunity. And the thing that I think is so exciting about this, and I think what is great about having it as a peer learning, is that, for instance, if you're a human service or shared space center, you might want to focus on that community impact and how do I measure sort of what individuals and families in my community are getting because we're putting all these services in one place. But somebody else might be focusing on collaboration, and because we'll be doing this kind of as a group, you can focus on what is most important for your center and for your evaluation, but you'll have the benefit of learning from everybody else, what they're doing on measuring collaboration or evaluating collaboration. And so you might, somewhere down the line, use some of those tools in your center. So it's sort of a double whammy, I think. Number one, you're getting really high quality evaluation out of this for your own center, and then even an investment in how to do it down the line. And I think this is, sort of what NCN is built around, is sort of this peer learning model. And so I just am really excited to be able to offer this, and I hope folks are as well. Do we have other questions from the audience? If you do, we're going to be wrapping this up, so get them in. What I'm looking for from all of you, if there aren't any other questions, is to be shooting me an email. Well, I guess what I'll do is we'll send you guys the slides, but here's the things I want you to be thinking about, and I'd like you to respond to the email with the slides. Let me know if you are committed to being part of this process. And I know I've got some of you who are on this call who've already told me that, but if you haven't already committed, I'd like to just know what the cohort is looking like. I'm also interested in when you would be interested in starting this. We kind of talked about January. Does that work for you? And then the third thing would be whether you're interested in this kind of being a more condensed 6-month activity or a 10 to 12-month activity that kind of spreads this work out. So again, whether you're committed and interested in being committed to this project, the timing to start, whether it's January or suggest an alternative in early 2017, and then whether you want it to be sort of a 6-month or 10 to 12-month project. So that's all that I have at this point. I think I think our goals were met today in terms of Elena explaining to you how this evaluation project would work. I think we have a great plan that will meet a lot of people's needs and will also sort of advance the field in terms of just having those tools and resources so that we can all help the rest of the network with evaluation and demonstrating and making the case for shared space. Here's my contact info and Katie and Lena's. And Lena Waite is our new programs assistant, not to be confused with Elena Harmon, who is our who was just speaking. So we've got a lot of Elenas and Lenas now. But anyway, Elena, do you have anything, any closing thoughts you want to add?
I don't think so. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to learn a little bit more about the project. And my contact information is in the slides as well. So if you have a specific question about the content or about evaluation more generally, please feel free to email or call me at any time.
Terrific. Okay, well, thanks for joining us. This is sort of a quickie webinar, 30 minutes. I hope it was a good format for you. I think we covered what we needed to cover, and we know you're all very busy people. So I'll be sending out the slides in within the next hour or so. And like I said, I'm interested to hear from those of you who are interested in committing to this project, the timing, and whether you want it to be 6 months or 10 to 12 months. So please be in touch. And of course, if you have any other thoughts or suggestions, love to hear those as well. So everybody, thank you. Thanks again, Elena and Katie. And we will talk to everyone soon. So goodbye for now.